Gumball Watterson might look like your average cartoon troublemaker, but behind that goofy smile hides someone capable of turning Elmore upside down. From testing the kindness of the nicest kid in school to letting jealousy take over, these are the 7 worst moments that truly define Gumball's dark side. Stay until the end, because the last one shows the exact point where fun becomes cruelty, and you won't want to miss it.
I've got an idea. We rent the house as a bed and breakfast.
Amazing.
1. The day kindness was stress-tested. Alan, the Saint. In The Saint, what begins as a small and almost forgettable accident in the school library transforms into one of the clearest and most uncomfortable windows into Gumball's insecurities. The scene is simple. Books scatter, noise erupts, and the stern librarian storms in with fury written all over her face. Everyone knows who caused the chaos. Gumball's clumsy, impulsive energy leaves no doubt. But then something extraordinary happens. Alan, the endlessly optimistic balloon, floats forward. He smiles with serenity, raises his metaphorical hand, and calmly declares, "It was me." No hesitation, no resentment, just pure protective kindness. In that instant, the expected response from Gumball should have been simple: gratitude. A thank you whispered under his breath, an apology for the mess. Maybe even a quiet moment of reflection about how lucky he is to have a friend willing to absorb punishment on his behalf. But Gumball doesn't process kindness in a straight line. For him, generosity isn't reassuring, it's suspicious. Instead of appreciating the sacrifice, he feels the urge to test it. Can someone really be that good? If Alan claims to embody compassion and patience, then Gumball's instinct is not to accept it, but to try and find the limit. And that's where the story takes a darker turn. What follows is a string of escalating experiments, each more humiliating than the last. Gumball begins with subtle sabotage, attempting to tarnish Alan's spotless online reputation. He crafts fake posts, manipulates how others see him, and waits eagerly to watch Alan break under the weight of gossip. But Alan doesn't flinch. So Gumball pushes harder. He stages a fake betrayal to try and rupture Alan's relationship with Carmen, knowing that attacking someone's love life is one of the fastest ways to cause pain. Still, Alan forgives. Still, he refuses to retaliate. Frustrated, Gumball moves into pettiness. He steals Alan's last bit of food, savoring the moment just to see if selfishness can finally provoke a reaction. And when even that fails, Gumball escalates into cruelty, fabricating illusions that threaten Alan's very sense of safety and stability. By this point, the game has nothing to do with jokes. It's not mischief anymore. It's control. Gumball isn't laughing. He's watching, measuring, and waiting for a crack to appear. Why would he do this? Why target someone who only ever shows him kindness? The truth is that Alan's goodness makes Gumball uncomfortable. True selflessness acts as a mirror, and mirrors are not always flattering. When Gumball sees Alan's steady patience, his compassion, his refusal to retaliate, it forces him to confront what he lacks: restraint, empathy, and maturity. And that reflection is painful. Humor becomes his armor, but beneath the jokes lies raw insecurity. By testing Alan, Gumball convinces himself that nobody can really be that good. Because if Alan's goodness is genuine, then Gumball has no choice but to acknowledge his own shortcomings. And Alan? He does not break. That's the power of this episode. Time and again, Alan absorbs the blows and chooses not to mirror Gumball's hostility. His kindness is not naive, and it's certainly not weakness, it is deliberate. A conscious strategy. Alan understands something that Gumball doesn't. Retaliation only validates cruelty, while patience dismantles it. His strength is not loud, not reckless, not attention-seeking. It is steady, calm, and quietly unshakable. This dynamic becomes one of the most unsettling truths revealed by the Saint. Gumball struggles to accept genuine goodness without trying to fracture it. He cannot allow kindness to exist without poking at it, tearing at it, trying to see where it fails. He treats trust like a stress test rather than a gift. And here's the devastating part. Trust doesn't collapse in an explosion of drama. It doesn't need noise or spectacle. It shatters quietly, almost invisibly, often in ways that cannot be repaired. By testing kindness, Gumball risks destroying the very thing that sustains him.
No escape!
That is why this episode stands as one of Gumball's lowest points. The harm is not in a prank gone wrong or a selfish outburst. It is in the deliberate dismantling of something pure. Alan's only crime was being too forgiving, too patient, too kind. And instead of receiving that gift, Gumball tried to break it. And yet, the Saint also holds one of the most important lessons in the series. Growth doesn't come from victories or from clever gags. It doesn't come from moments when Gumball feels smart or triumphant. Growth comes when he is forced to confront himself, when kindness refuses to break, and he is left staring at his own reflection. Alan doesn't change in this story. He remains constant, immovable, a balloon filled not with air, but with unshakable grace. The one who changes, however reluctantly, is Gumball. By the time the episode ends, he doesn't admit his realization out loud. He doesn't offer a speech about lessons learned, but the weight is there. He walks away carrying a heavier truth. Sometimes the hardest thing to accept in life is not cruelty, but unconditional grace. And sometimes the person hardest to forgive is not the one who wronged you, but yourself, when you realize you tried to break what was never meant to be broken. 2. When competition wrecks routines. Larry, the laziest. It all starts with what looks like nothing more than a harmless idea. A lighthearted contest to determine who is truly the laziest person in all of Elmore. On the surface, it seems like a setup for simple comedy. A playful bet without consequences. Richard Watterson, of course, is the reigning champion of doing absolutely nothing. A master of couch surfing and snack consuming. A man who could turn idleness into an Olympic sport. But Gumball and Darwin, worn down by the endless grind of chores and always searching for shortcuts, decide it's time to challenge him. With mischievous grins, they set the terms. If we can find someone lazier than you, Dad, then you'll have to do our chores for a whole day. To them, this is just another silly game, another chance to turn family life into a competition. But what begins as a childish dare quickly snowballs into a disaster that derails not only their household dynamic, but also another person's entire life. The rules of the game are deceptively simple. Stay as still as possible, avoid work at all costs, and prove that you are the undisputed king of sloth. At first, it's a comedy of exaggerations. Richard collapses dramatically onto the couch, surrounded by snacks that serve as both fuel and evidence of his mastery. Gumball and Darwin mimic his pose, attempting to out-lazy him, believing that they can finally dethrone their father. But the humor wears off quickly when reality sets in. Remaining motionless isn't as easy as it sounds. Their restless energy betrays them. Sugar rushes from too many sweets make them twitchy. Boredom gnaws at them like an itch they can't scratch. Suddenly, doing nothing feels like the hardest challenge of all. In their desperation, the boys search for a loophole, a way to twist the rules of the game in their favor. That's when they hear the legend of Lazy Larry. Once an employee at Elmore's supermarket, Larry became infamous for being so inactive, so entirely unmotivated, that even Richard of all people, looked energetic by comparison. To Gumball, this discovery is a revelation. This is the hidden boss in his video game view of the world. If they can recruit Larry and convince him to reclaim his throne as the laziest of them all, victory will be theirs. It's classic Gumball logic. Life is just a series of levels, and all he needs is the right character to beat the challenge. But in chasing this victory, Gumball and Darwin completely ignore the stakes for Larry himself. At first, Larry resists. He's changed since his lazy legend days. He has responsibilities now, a steady job, a car, even a relationship. He's built stability in a world that thrives on his reliability. He's the man who quietly keeps Elmore running, working multiple jobs to keep food on the table. He knows what it cost him to leave laziness behind, and he doesn't want to go back. But Gumball, blinded by his obsession with winning, refuses to listen. He tempts Larry with the idea of reclaiming his old glory, manipulates him with taunts about whether he's really changed, and slowly, relentlessly, convinces him to slip back into his old habits. And then the consequences begin to pile up, literally. Larry, once the most reliable man in Elmore, begins skipping work. At first, it's small. A shift missed here, a late arrival there, But his boss notices. Customers complain. The delicate balance Larry built starts to crumble. Bills begin to pile up as he loses income. His car, a symbol of his independence, gets repossessed. His relationship falters and eventually ends, the weight of his backsliding too much for it to bear. One by one, the pillars of his life collapse, until Larry is left with nothing but the hollow shell of his old reputation, the laziest man in town. The tragedy is quiet but devastating, hidden beneath the surface of slapstick comedy. What makes The Laziest sting isn't just the exaggerated comedy of Richard and Gumball competing to sit still, it's the tragedy beneath it. Gumball wanted a funny victory, a story he could laugh about. But in treating life like a board game, he gambled with someone else's livelihood. He never paused to ask himself the simplest of questions. What happens to Larry if this works? For Gumball, it's all spectacle. For Larry, it's devastation. And this is the heart of Gumball's flaw. To him, the world is a game board, and the people around him are just pieces to be moved. He sees life as entertainment, each challenge as a puzzle, each conflict as a competition to be won. But he rarely considers who might absorb the cost of his fun. The collateral damage remains invisible to him until it becomes undeniable. And in this episode, the damage is massive. Larry isn't just another background character. He represents the unsung backbone of Elmore, the ordinary people who keep things functioning despite the chaos caused by families like the Wattersons. He works tirelessly, juggling multiple roles to keep society together. He endures the endless mischief of the Wattersons on a daily basis and somehow continues to show up for his community. Watching his entire stability unravel because of a childish bet drives home a chilling truth. Even the strongest structures of responsibility and kindness can be fragile when treated as toys. What this episode reveals is unsettling. When Gumball plays, someone else pays. He frames every challenge as a competition, every problem as a puzzle, every conflict as a joke, but he almost never checks who absorbs the consequences of his choices. For Richard and Gumball, laziness is a comedy routine, a bit of family theater. For Larry, it is the destruction of everything he fought so hard to rebuild. And that is why The Laziest hits so hard beneath the humor. It isn't just a silly story about who can sit still the longest. It's a cautionary tale about how irresponsibility can destroy someone else's stability. It teaches us that fun, when stripped of empathy, becomes cruelty. It forces us to confront the reality that while Gumball may bend the logic of his cartoon universe for laughs, in doing so, he bends people too. And not everyone bounces back. Some people break. 3. The science of playing with fire. Anton, the recipe. In the recipe, Gumball's curiosity is put under the spotlight, and what begins as a small, almost silly mystery turns into one of the most telling stories about how far he's willing to go when he wants answers. The setting could not be more ordinary. A swim class. Anton, the bread boy, dives in, sinks quickly, and seems to disappear forever. For the other students, the moment is bizarre but not worth dwelling on. After all, Elmore is a place where the laws of logic bend daily. Characters vanish and return all the time, and the absurd is part of the background noise. But for Gumball, this isn't background noise. This is a puzzle, and puzzles demand solutions. The shock comes the very next day, when Anton casually strolls back into class as if nothing had happened. No one else is particularly disturbed. Strange? Sure, but Elmore is always strange. To everyone else, the mystery resolves itself with a shrug. But Gumball cannot leave it there. The thought grabs him by the tail and refuses to let go. How can Anton survive something like that? The more he repeats the question, the more it eats away at him. It becomes less a curiosity and more an obsession. And here is where we see one of Gumball's defining flaws. When curiosity consumes him, he stops seeing people as people. Anton is no longer a classmate, no longer a bread roll with feelings, hopes, and friendships. He becomes an experiment, a test subject. A puzzle piece that Gumball is determined to fit into place, no matter how much he has to bend it. This is not born of cruelty in the obvious sense. Gumball doesn't set out to hurt Anton, but it is selfish. The thrill of discovering a secret overrides the empathy required to consider how Anton might feel being treated this way. At first, the experiments look like jokes. Gumball nudges Anton toward risky situations, almost daring him to disappear again. The audience laughs at the absurdity, but behind the laughs there's an unease. Anton, though he revives, still experiences the fear, the shock, the humiliation of being treated like an object in front of everyone. The humor masks something darker. Gumball is testing his friend's mortality for fun. When that isn't enough, Gumball drags Darwin into the scheme. Together, they sneak into Anton's house, and what they discover is astonishing. Anton's parents literally bake him anew in a toaster each time he disappears. For Darwin, the revelation is surreal, perhaps disturbing. For most people, it would raise questions about identity, continuity, even existence itself. But for Gumball, it is pure exhilaration. The mystery has cracked open, and instead of respecting the bizarre miracle, he wants more. He wants to replicate it. And so begins the true spiral. Gumball, in his boundless impulsivity, tosses ordinary slices of bread into the toaster, determined to create his own Antons. To his delight, it works, or at least it seems to. Out pop new Antons, one after another, each slightly different, slightly unstable. At first, it's hilarious. A parade of Antons fills the screen, all similar but with quirks, a taller one, a squashed one with a slightly off personality. It feels like slapstick, the kind of cartoon gag the show thrives on. But soon, the tone shifts. Some of the clones don't accept their fate as duplicates. They don't want to be copies. They want to be real, original, valued. One in particular, who calls himself Ant One, grows resentful. He refuses to be disposable. He doesn't just want freedom, he wants dominance. He wants to take Anton's place entirely. And here is where the comedy becomes unsettling. Gumball's reckless experiment has created a crisis of identity. Anton, who already struggles with the absurdity of his own existence, now has to face the reality that he can be duplicated endlessly, that his individuality is fragile, that even his friends can't tell him apart from his clones. The joke hides a disturbing truth. To Gumball, Anton's existence is entertainment. To Anton, it is terror. The escalation continues until the clones form an army, following Ant One as their leader. They rise up, fed up with being treated as mistakes. What began as curiosity has become chaos. Gumball now faces a swarm of angry duplicates, each one a reminder of how far he's pushed things. And yet, even in the face of this absurd rebellion, Gumball doesn't fully grasp the weight of what he's done. He treats the uprising as another spectacle, another mess to clean up. The resolution is slapstick, as Elmore often delivers. The clone army is defeated, Ant One is pushed into the pool, and the crisis fizzles out. But the final blow is delivered quietly, almost cruelly. In the aftermath, Gumball and Darwin are still unable to tell the real Anton apart from the duplicates. In a moment meant to play for laughs, they mistake the true Anton for a clone, treating him as disposable, as just another product of their toaster experiment. And in that instant, the damage is complete. The betrayal is subtle, but it cuts deep. Anton is dehumanized, not by an enemy, but by his own friends. The lesson of the recipe is far heavier than the episode's comedic packaging suggests. Curiosity without care is not science. It's collateral damage. Real science values consent, safety, and responsibility. It demands respect for the subject of study. Gumball's version of science is none of these things. It's chaos wrapped in discovery, thrill dressed up as intellect. He wants answers, but he doesn't stop to consider the cost of getting them. For Anton, that cost is his very sense of self, his dignity, his safety. And here lies the haunting takeaway. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Curiosity can inspire growth, connection, and wonder, but only if it is guided by empathy. Without it, curiosity becomes entitlement. It becomes exploitation. It turns people into props, into objects, into punchlines. And in this episode, Gumball learns that lesson far too late, leaving Anton shaken and the audience uneasy. On the surface, the recipe ends like any other Gumball episode. Everything resets. Anton is still there. Elmore carries on. The Wattersons move to their next absurd adventure. But for the audience, something lingers.
My new vision.
A manifesto on how to forcibly seize power and eradicate sadness across the globe.
Should've let us leave the room first.
We can't quite laugh it off because the truth has been revealed. When curiosity runs unchecked, when it values results over relationships, it stops being innocent. It becomes reckless. It leaves scars that can't be toasted away. And perhaps that is why the recipe stands out as one of the most unsettling funny episodes in the series. It is a mirror held up to the way we sometimes treat others when we're driven by our need to know, to win, to discover. It asks us, in its absurd cartoon way, to question our own impulses. Are we curious or are we careless? Do we marvel at others or do we exploit them? The show doesn't answer these questions neatly, but it forces us to sit with them. And that is what makes the story so powerful. 4. The obsession that snaps the lock. Darwin, the secret. It starts in one of the most ordinary, almost boring places imaginable. The school bathroom. The tiled walls, the echo of dripping faucets, the faint smell of disinfectant, hardly the stage for a dramatic lesson about friendship. And yet, it is here that Gumball and Darwin, by accident, find themselves locked in together. For a fleeting moment, they both believe this might be it, trapped forever in one of the least glamorous corners of Elmore Junior High. The claustrophobia settles in quickly, but Gumball does what he always does in moments of discomfort. He fills the air with chatter. He cracks jokes, spins silly stories, and eventually, in an effort to lighten the mood, begins confessing to things he's done in the past. At first, it's all comedy. Gumball admits to harmless pranks like doodling in Darwin's school books or playing little tricks that, while annoying, were easy enough to forgive. Darwin rolls his eyes, half amused and half exasperated, because this is the Gumball he knows: impulsive, playful, and incapable of letting silence linger. But then one confession goes too far. Gumball admits that he was the one responsible for a creepy drawing that had been discovered in Darwin's notebook. A drawing that got Darwin sent to counseling for an entire summer. To Gumball, it's nothing but a casual slip, softened by the ridiculousness of their current situation. They're locked in a bathroom. After all, how serious can anything feel? But for Darwin, the revelation is devastating. That drawing had changed the way teachers looked at him. It had shifted how his classmates treated him. It had left him confused about himself, wondering if others saw him as strange, troubled, or even dangerous. And all of it, every ounce of that burden had been placed on him because Gumball wanted a laugh. The betrayal cuts deeper than Gumball realizes. The shift in tone is immediate. The playful atmosphere evaporates. Darwin's hurt is written across his face. For once, he isn't the forgiving, endlessly patient brother. For once, the wound is visible. And in that heavy silence, Darwin considers confessing something of his own. He starts to say it. Well, actually, I have a secret too. And the tension rises. The balance between them trembles. But before Darwin can reveal anything, the bathroom door bursts open. Rocky, the janitor, mistakes their voices for ghostly shrieks, and the moment collapses into slapstick. The tension is broken for the audience, but for Gumball, the damage is just beginning. Because Gumball cannot let it go. Darwin's unfinished sentence hangs in the air like an unanswered question. That fragment, "I have a secret too," becomes a black hole in his mind, sucking in all of his attention. He doesn't just want to know, he needs to know. What could Darwin possibly be hiding? What could be so important that he almost said it but didn't? The uncertainty gnaws at him, and that's when affection twists into interrogation. From that point on, Gumball becomes consumed. He frames his obsession as curiosity, but the truth is more fragile. It's fear. What if Darwin knows something embarrassing about him? What if Darwin has leverage? What if their relationship, which Gumball always assumed was perfectly balanced, isn't as secure as he thought? The questions spiral into paranoia, and in his panic, he begins to treat Darwin less like a friend and more like a puzzle to be solved. The tactics he uses are telling and troubling. First, he turns to competition, challenging Darwin in games and contests, hoping that the pressure will force him to confess. When that fails, he escalates. He uses tricks, spicy food, confusion, constant distractions, all designed to break Darwin's
I
composure.
can eat what I want, so I pick the best one. I pick up ham and chocolate chips and stick them in.
He treats the bond between them like a pressure cooker, waiting for it to explode with the secret he craves. At one point, in an almost desperate move, Gumball drags Darwin back into the same bathroom, deliberately locking the door again. He convinces himself that if the environment matches the original scene, Darwin will be forced to finish what he started. He is no longer asking, he is reenacting, replaying, and trying to control the story. What's happening here is bigger than a silly secret. This isn't about the content of what Darwin might say. It's about Gumball's terror of losing control in the relationship. For as long as he can remember, Gumball has been the leader, the loud one, the impulsive storm. Darwin has been the anchor, the calm, forgiving balance that keeps him from floating too far into chaos. But in this moment, the dynamic shifts. Darwin is holding something back. Darwin has the power of knowledge, and that imbalance terrifies Gumball. It threatens his sense of dominance, his belief that he knows everything about his closest companion. Suddenly, he feels vulnerable, and instead of embracing that vulnerability, instead of recognizing it as part of what makes relationships real, he tries to crush it. He pushes Darwin, manipulates him, pressures him, all in an attempt to force the world back into the shape he understands. But friendship doesn't work that way. Real bonds breathe only when there is space. Space for mystery, for privacy, for imperfection. Gumball doesn't understand this yet. To him, love equals access. If Darwin loves him, then Darwin should share everything. If Darwin hesitates, then it must mean something is wrong. This is where Gumball's immaturity is laid bare. His affection isn't unconditional. It comes with invisible handcuffs. He believes closeness means ownership, and that belief suffocates the very bond he's trying to protect. And Darwin? Darwin endures. He absorbs the pressure with the patience he always shows, though this time the hurt is clear. The irony is brutal. When the secret finally comes to light, it's something trivial, almost silly. In fact, it reflects more embarrassment on Gumball than on Darwin. All of the pressure, all of the manipulation, all of the obsessive interrogation, it was all for nothing. Gumball wasn't uncovering a betrayal. He was exposing his own insecurity. This is the heart of the episode's message. Affection, when stripped of respect, stops being affection at all. It becomes control. Gumball genuinely loves Darwin. That much is clear. But his love is tangled up in fear and insecurity. He doesn't trust Darwin enough to grant him the simple dignity of privacy. To Gumball, closeness is possession. If they are truly friends, if they are brothers, then Darwin should share everything, no matter how small. The irony is that the harder Gumball tries to hold on to intimacy, the more he strangles it. His desire for closeness becomes suffocating, like vines wrapping too tightly around a tree. The message here is subtle but incredibly powerful. Real friendship doesn't require total transparency. It thrives on mutual choice, on the freedom to share or to stay silent. Secrets aren't always betrayals. Sometimes they're simply fragments of our humanity, private spaces we are allowed to keep, even with the people we love most. What makes the comedy of The Secret so effective is how it exaggerates something that feels uncomfortably familiar. Who hasn't felt the itch to pry when someone withholds a detail? Who hasn't demanded an explanation, convinced that knowing will grant us control, safety, or reassurance? We laugh at Gumball's antics, his absurd attempts to force Darwin's confession through competitions, through spicy food, through locking him back inside the same bathroom, because they are ridiculous in scale. But at the same time, we cringe. We recognize ourselves in him. The dynamic is exaggerated, but the impulse is real. Every push for information chips away at trust. Every demand that someone share before they're ready makes the bond a little weaker. And the uncomfortable realization is that, in our own lives, we've sometimes played the very same role Gumball does here. By the time the credits roll, nothing catastrophic has happened. There's no dramatic breakup, no permanent fracture in their bond. Darwin, as he so often does, forgives with grace. The friendship survives, and life in Elmore continues with its usual rhythm of chaos and laughter. But the scar is still there, invisible yet undeniable.
Tell us the quickest way out of this dump. Still beats our town. It's so small.
Trust, once tested, never comes back in exactly the same form. And for the audience, the lesson lingers long after the laughs are over. Love without boundaries isn't closeness, it's captivity. Affection that demands total access isn't intimacy, it's a cage. True friendship breathes only when there's space for choice, for mystery, for imperfection. It needs room to exhale. And perhaps the deepest irony of all is this. Gumball's fear was that Darwin's secret might harm their bond, that it might expose something ugly or damaging. But the real danger wasn't the secret itself. It was Gumball's obsession with uncovering it, his refusal to allow space, his inability to tolerate not knowing. In trying to force the truth into the open, he nearly suffocated the very friendship he wanted to protect. The secret didn't threaten their closeness. Gumball's hunger for control did. And that, more than anything Darwin might have said, is what makes The Secret one of the most painfully relatable episodes of them all. 5. Help in disguise. Sussy, the weirdo. In The Weirdo, we witness one of the most revealing examples of how Gumball's desire to help often disguises a deeper need for control. The story begins with Sussy being her usual self, strange, unpredictable, endlessly original. She offers Gumball a gift that doesn't follow any of the rules of what we normally consider a present. It's handmade, quirky, oddly shaped, and maybe even a little unsettling. Gumball forces a polite smile, but inside he's confused. And when he notices how his classmates react, how they whisper, giggle, and roll their eyes, the confusion hardens into discomfort. Suddenly, Sussy's uniqueness doesn't just stand out, it makes Gumball feel embarrassed. The laughter of the others echoes in his ears, and instead of directing his frustration toward the mockery, he looks at Susie. His mind begins to spin with what feels like a simple solution. If she stops being weird, then the world will stop laughing. At first glance, this impulse seems noble. Gumball convinces himself that he's acting out of care. He doesn't want to see her mocked. He doesn't want her to feel the sting of rejection. So he takes it upon himself to help. But his version of help is not about listening to her or standing by her side. It's about reshaping her into what he thinks the world will accept. He begins with her appearance, suggesting she tone down her wild colors, change the angles of her jawline, wear clothes that blend rather than shine. The result is both comical and uncomfortable. Sussy looks normal, but she no longer looks like herself. The sparkle that made her instantly recognizable is gone. And Gumball doesn't stop at appearances. He hands her a list of conversational rules, telling her what she should say, what she should hide, and what topics are off-limits if she wants to be liked. He coaches her tone, her timing, even the way she should laugh. The randomness and spontaneity that define Sussy are erased, replaced with mechanical scripts that make her sound like anyone but herself. He even tries to redirect her hobbies toward things that feel safe or trendy, despite the fact that they bore her. Slowly, piece by piece, he carves away at her identity, all under the banner of kindness. What we see is a girl who tries, sincerely, to follow along. She doesn't resist, not because she feels ashamed, but because she trusts Gumball. To her, his insistence must mean it's important. Maybe he really does know better. And so she puts on the mask he has designed for her. But something changes in that moment. Her natural rhythm disappears, her voice loses its music, her presence feels muted. The joy that normally radiates from her, the spark that makes Sussy, begins to dim. The more she bends to his rules, the less at home she feels in her own skin. When Gumball finally unveils new Sussy to the world, he expects applause. He imagines admiration, respect, maybe even acceptance from the classmates who used to laugh. But the opposite happens. The laughter continues, only now it is harsher, sharper, because nothing invites ridicule faster than someone straining to be what they are not. A single slip from Sussy, one stray comment in her natural style, is enough to expose the performance, and the reaction is immediate. The kids laugh again, not just at her, but at the awkwardness of the disguise. The makeover hasn't shielded her. It has stripped her down, leaving her even more vulnerable. It is in this failure that Gumball begins to see the truth.
Like this one! Look, I don't think I'm capable. Just forget about me, like everyone else has.
By trying to erase her difference, he hasn't protected her at all. He has magnified the cruelty of others. He realizes that what Sussy needed was never a new costume, never a rule book, never a cage disguised as guidance. What she needed was someone willing to stand beside her, to face the ridicule with her, to redirect the laughter away from her isolation and toward the absurdity of uniformity itself. The turning point comes when the episode lets us see the world through Sussy's eyes. The colors shift, the sounds overlap, and ordinary objects take on strange but delightful meanings. To Gumball, it may look like nonsense. To the audience, it feels surreal. But to Sussy, it is life, playful, creative, and full of connections that others miss. For the first time, Gumball understands that her weirdness is not brokenness. It is her identity, her way of finding meaning in a world that often feels too rigid and too narrow. From that moment on, something shifts in him. Instead of trying to adjust Sussy to the world, he begins adjusting himself to her. When the bullies return, he doesn't hide her quirks or silence her voice. He echoes them. He joins her rhythm. He makes himself part of her melody. And suddenly, the joke changes. The laughter is no longer directed at Sussy. It's directed at the idea that there is only one acceptable way to exist. The humor flips from punching down at difference to punching up at conformity. And in that reversal, the lesson becomes clear. What began as an attempt to fix her transforms into a revelation that she never needed fixing at all. The truth that the weirdo reveals stretches far beyond the quirky streets of Elmore. At its heart, the episode exposes how easy it is to confuse protection with uniformity. Gumball convinces himself that the safest way to protect Susie is to reshape her, to smooth out the very edges that make her unique. He imagines that if she just looked a little more normal, talked a little more normal, acted a little more normal, then the laughter would stop and the world would accept her. But the opposite happens. By sanding down her edges, he doesn't make her stronger, he makes her fragile. He strips away the resilience that comes from owning one's difference and replaces it with the brittleness of a mask that is impossible to maintain. His help turns out to be control in disguise, a subtler form of rejection dressed up as kindness. It's the kind of control that whispers, "I'll stand beside you, but only if you're less yourself." And that is not protection. That is not love. That is manipulation. The episode drives home a difficult truth. Acceptance that comes with conditions isn't real acceptance at all. It's captivity disguised as care. Telling someone, "I'll accept you if you change," is no different than saying, "I don't accept you as you are." And for Susie, who lives unapologetically in her own rhythm, that kind of acceptance would be worse than rejection. It would be a slow erasure of her identity, a quiet denial of her right to exist on her own terms. The brilliance of the weirdo lies in the way it wraps this heavy truth in comedy. On the surface, it's funny. We laugh at the absurd makeover scenes, at Gumball trying to coach Sussy into his idea of normalcy, at Sussy awkwardly repeating phrases that don't sound like her, stumbling through mannerisms that don't belong to her. We laugh because the visuals are exaggerated, because the scenario is ridiculous, because Sussy's quirks are presented in their most exaggerated form. But underneath the humor, the laughter feels uneasy. There's a discomfort that creeps in because the mirror is there waiting for us. How many times have we, in our own lives, softened our edges just to be accepted? How many times have we changed the way we speak, the way we dress, the way we laugh? Not because we wanted to, but because someone told us it would make us fit in better? How often has advice from others been less about what would make us happy, and more about their discomfort with our difference? The weirdo doesn't just satirize Sussy's awkward attempts to mimic Gumball's normal. It satirizes the pressure we all feel at some point. The pressure to conform, to blend in, to silence what makes us stand out. By the end of the episode, the truth is undeniable. Sussy shines brightest not when she tries to hide, not when she plays by Gumball's rules, but when she embraces her own strange, unpredictable rhythm. She is unapologetic, vibrant, fully herself, chaotic, funny, and wonderfully unique. And Gumball, to his credit, learns from the failure of his experiment. He learns that her difference is not a flaw to be corrected, but a gift to be celebrated.
I hereby grant thee thy fairest and most cherished wish.
What?
That means yes.
He realizes that her quirks don't make her weak. They are her strength, her identity, her home. The closing message of the weirdo is as much for us as it is for Gumball. You cannot protect someone by erasing them. You cannot love someone by asking them to shrink. True protection, true affection, means standing with people as they are, not as you wish they would be. Difference doesn't need to be managed. It needs to be honored. And the moment Gumball understands that, even briefly, the episode transcends its comedy and delivers one of the most human lessons in the entire series. 6. Jealousy wearing a monster suit. Leslie, the flower. In The Flower, Gumball's jealousy takes center stage, and it exposes one of the darkest and most fragile sides of his personality. The episode begins innocently. Penny, the girl he has long cared about, is seen spending time with Leslie, the elegant flower boy whose calm confidence and soft charm make him an easy target for envy. For most people, this would be nothing more than a fleeting insecurity, a momentary doubt quickly dismissed with reassurance. But for Gumball, jealousy is not quiet. It is not background noise, it is a storm. And once the clouds gather, he doesn't just feel the emotion, he becomes consumed by it. At first, it starts small, like all storms do. Gumball notices a gesture between Penny and Leslie, then a laugh, then a shared moment of attention. Each detail becomes fuel for his imagination. He interprets every word, every glance, as a potential threat to his place in Penny's world. Instead of taking the healthy route, talking to Penny honestly about his feelings, he allows the emotion to grow unchecked. What begins as suspicion quickly transforms into obsession. His thoughts loop endlessly. What if she prefers Leslie? What if I lose her? What if I'm not enough? The more he thinks, the more distorted his reality becomes. He mocks Leslie behind his back, imitating his mannerisms, trying to reduce him to a punchline. But mockery isn't enough. Soon he begins belittling Leslie directly, insulting his every move, attacking his identity with jokes that cut deeper than he realizes. On the surface, it looks like humor, the usual sharp-edged wit that defines Gumball. But beneath the laughter lies something raw and dangerous, the unraveling of a boy terrified of being replaced. And jealousy, once it takes hold, rarely stays contained. It escalates. Gumball begins to plot ways to frame Leslie, to create situations that might make him look guilty in the eyes of others. He twists innocent actions into incriminating ones, hoping that if Leslie looks untrustworthy, Penny will cling tighter to him. And then comes one of the most disturbing moments in the entire series. Gumball unleashing a swarm of snails onto Leslie, gluing him to a bench and watching with satisfaction as they crawl over him. The scene is played with absurd cartoon logic, but underneath, it carries a chilling undertone. This isn't just annoyance anymore, it's punishment. Gumball is punishing Leslie for daring to exist too close to Penny. What makes the flower so powerful is that it doesn't leave jealousy as just an abstract feeling. It gives it form. It personifies the emotion as a slimy green creature called jealousy that literally takes control of Gumball's body, twisting his actions and amplifying his worst impulses. This creature isn't just a monster for entertainment, it's a metaphor. It shows us how emotions, when denied and buried, don't vanish. They fester, they grow, and eventually, they control us. Gumball's jealousy isn't just in his mind, it becomes a parasite that puppeteers his every move. And yet, the brilliance of the episode lies in the fact that it doesn't let Gumball off the hook. Even though the jealousy is externalized as a monster, the responsibility still belongs to him. After all, the creature only grows stronger because Gumball feeds it. Every mocking comment, every cruel plan, every refusal to be honest with Penny becomes fuel for the monster. The show delivers a profound message. Emotions may feel like they attack us from the outside, but in reality, they are shaped by the choices we make. Jealousy doesn't appear out of nowhere. It thrives when we avoid vulnerability and choose hostility instead. What we witness here is Gumball at his most human. Jealousy is universal, which is what makes this episode so unsettling. Every viewer recognizes a piece of themselves in his spiral. Who hasn't compared themselves to someone else? Who hasn't felt small next to someone who seemed more talented, more charming, or more loved? The difference is that most people find ways to manage those feelings. Gumball doesn't. He lets them overtake him, externalizing his fear as aggression and, in the process, hurting someone who never intended him harm. Leslie isn't a villain in this story. He's just present. And that makes the cruelty even sharper. The resolution comes when Gumball finally names what's happening. He admits, even if only to himself, that what drives him is jealousy. And in naming it, he takes away some of its power. The slimy monster loses its grip, the tension dissolves, and balance is restored. The symbolism is striking. The first step to taming destructive emotions is to acknowledge them. Denial makes them stronger. Honesty makes them manageable. What the flower reveals about Gumball is absolutely essential to understanding his character. Jealousy, at its core, is never really about the other person. It's about the one who feels it. Leslie didn't cause Gumball's meltdown. Penny didn't cause it either. Nothing that either of them said or did created the storm inside him. The truth is that Gumball's own fear of not being enough is what fuels the fire. It's his insecurity, not Leslie's presence, that pushes him to lash out, to mock, to sabotage, to try and control a situation that never truly threatened him in the first place. And this is what makes the episode so powerful. It strips jealousy down to its rawest form. It isn't romantic rivalry or competition that drives Gumball. It's the deep, gnawing suspicion that he doesn't measure up. His imagination fills in the blanks with worst-case scenarios, convincing him that Penny's affection might slip away at the smallest sign of weakness. By the end, however, he learns, if only for a brief, flickering moment, that Penny's feelings for him are not threatened by Leslie's existence. Trust, he realizes, requires courage, not suspicion. And love, if it's to mean anything at all, demands vulnerability, not control. This episode also offers one of the clearest windows into Gumball's inner world. At his core, he is not malicious. He doesn't wake up in the morning with a plan to hurt people. He isn't a villain in the traditional sense. What he is, however, is insecure, achingly so. He masks that insecurity with humor, with loudness, with reckless antics. But humor has a sharp edge, and when it's wrapped around fear, it mutates into something far more dangerous. In the flower, we see exactly how insecurity wrapped in laughter can tip into cruelty. What begins as jokes about Leslie turns into plots to humiliate him, frame him, even endanger him. The message is clear. Fear, when left unchecked, distorts love into something unrecognizable. And unless that fear is faced directly, it can poison everything it touches. Affection can morph into possession. Care can twist into control. What Gumball feels for Penny is real, but the way jealousy warps that feeling shows how quickly love can curdle when it isn't grounded in trust. This is the warning at the heart of the flower. Emotions we refuse to name or confront will eventually take control of us. By the time the credits roll, the comedy has done its surface job. We've laughed at the absurdity of a flower boy glued to a bench, at the sheer ridiculousness of snails crawling over Leslie, at the exaggerated expressions that make the scene entertaining. We've cringed at the extremes Gumball goes to, and we've shaken our heads at the over-the-top cartoon logic, but when the screen fades, the laughter fades too, and something heavier remains. The deeper message lingers long after the gag is over. Difference, trust, and affection can only survive when jealousy is recognized for what it is, not when it's buried or denied. Because ultimately, the real battle isn't between Gumball and Leslie. Leslie isn't his rival. He isn't even an obstacle. Penny isn't the prize to be won or defended. The real battle is inside Gumball himself. It is between his insecurity and his capacity for trust, between his fear and his love, between his instinct to control and his ability to let go. And the real victory, the one that matters, is not about defeating someone else. It's about conquering the storm inside. 7. The invisible line. When you step back and connect the dots across all these episodes, the saint, the laziest, the recipe, the secret, the weirdo, and the flower, a clear and unsettling pattern begins to emerge. Each one places Gumball in a moment of weakness, yes, but those weaknesses aren't scattered or random. They come from the same root, the same blind spot. His inability to recognize the invisible line between fun and harm, between self-expression and selfishness. Between curiosity and care. This line is invisible, not because it doesn't exist, but because Gumball never notices it until it's already behind him. For him, the world is a playground, endlessly forgiving. He believes every action, no matter how disruptive, can be reset with a quick apology or brushed aside with a laugh. But the reality is different. The damage he causes, though often disguised under absurd comedy, leaves real emotional marks on the people around him. Alan's trust is tested to the breaking point. Larry's carefully rebuilt life collapses. Anton's dignity is stripped away as his existence becomes a science experiment. Darwin's friendship is strained as affection turns into interrogation. Sussie's identity is challenged when her uniqueness is treated like a flaw to erase. And Leslie, gentle, harmless Leslie, is treated as an enemy simply for standing too close to Penny. None of this is accidental. These are the direct results of Gumball's refusal to pause and ask one simple question: who might this hurt? The invisible line doesn't always look the same. It shifts depending on the situation. With Alan, it is the fine thread between teasing and cruelty. With Larry, it is the fragile boundary between playing a game and tearing down someone's livelihood. With Anton, it is the razor edge between curiosity and exploitation. With Darwin, it is the thin wall between intimacy and invasion. With Sussie, it is the gap between protection and erasure. And with Leslie, it is the perilous divide between affection and fear-driven hostility. Each time, the pattern repeats. Gumball acts first, revels in the chaos, and only later, often too late, realizes he has crossed into territory that leaves scars on others. What makes this pattern powerful is that it mirrors something deeply human. We all carry invisible lines in our own lives. The joke told in good fun that lands a little too hard. The playful question that becomes intrusive. The competition that shifts from healthy to toxic. The attempt to help that ends up silencing the very person we meant to protect. The love that curdles into jealousy and control. These thresholds are nearly impossible to see in the moment, but once we cross them, we feel the consequences linger long after the laughter has faded. In this way, Gumball's character becomes a mirror for our own blind spots. He is not evil. He does not scheme to harm the people around him, but he is impulsive, self-centered, and deeply insecure. These traits make him hilarious to watch, but they also make him dangerous to those who trust him most. And the brilliance of the amazing world of Gumball is that it refuses to sugarcoat this. The show delivers the laughs, yes, but it also shows us the cost. Every joke carries weight, and sometimes that weight falls hardest on the characters who least deserve it. The invisible line is not just a theme, it's also one of the cleverest narrative devices the show uses. It gives the amazing world of Gumball the ability to juggle two seemingly opposite tones: the over-the-top slapstick absurdity of cartoon chaos and the weight of genuine emotional stakes. On one level, you can watch Gumball trip, fall, prank, and exaggerate without thinking too hard. But underneath, there's a structure that ensures every gag carries a consequence. The invisible line is what creates that shift. When Gumball pushes too far, the audience laughs at first. We laugh at the exaggerated reactions, the surreal visuals, the sheer nonsense of Elmore. But then comes the pause. That pause is crucial. In it, the laughter falters just enough for us to register the discomfort of watching someone genuinely hurt. And it's inside that discomfort where the lesson takes root. The show's brilliance lies in how it disguises its teachings inside these beats. Instead of lecturing the audience, it lets the invisible line do the work. It tells us quietly but firmly that growing up isn't about never making mistakes. No child or adult can avoid them completely. Growth is about learning to recognize the boundaries before they're crossed, about becoming sensitive to the signs that fun is curdling into harm. It's about realizing that not every laugh is harmless, and not every oops can simply be erased with a quick apology. Some mistakes leave echoes and some lessons only come with scars. And the lessons really do accumulate. even if Gumball learns them in the most clumsy, inconsistent ways possible. His growth is never linear. It comes in stumbles, in bursts, in moments where he backslides into the same behavior again. But the repetition is part of the point. Slowly, haltingly, he begins to understand. He learns that kindness doesn't need to be tested over and over again to prove it's genuine. Alan's patience in the Saint already answered that. He learns that curiosity is powerful, but curiosity alone isn't enough.
I'm just saying, why do people say grapefruit and tuna fish, but not egg chicken or beef mammal?
Come on, Mr. Dad. When we say come pick us up after school, we didn't mean...
It has to be paired with responsibility, as Anton's suffering in the recipe shows him. He discovers that love without respect suffocates, because trying to control Darwin or Penny only makes them pull away. He learns that difference isn't a problem to fix, as with Sussy in The Weirdo, but a rhythm to join and celebrate. And he learns that jealousy doesn't shrink when ignored. It grows until it controls him, as it did in The Flower. Only when he names it, only when he admits it out loud, does it lose its grip. These are not neat, polished morals wrapped up with a bow at the end of the episode. They're messy, incomplete, and often unfairly learned at someone else's expense. They come with embarrassment, with hurt feelings, with strained friendships. But they are lessons nonetheless. They stick to Gumball, shaping him slowly, piece by piece, even as they sting. And in that messy, clumsy process, the invisible line becomes not only a narrative device for the show, but a metaphor for the messy way we all grow up, through mistakes, through missteps, and through the uncomfortable pauses that follow them. This is what makes his arc so compelling. The worst moments, the lowest points, become the most important ones. Without failure, there is no growth. Without stumbling, there is no empathy. The invisible line, then, isn't just an obstacle to his fun. It's the very map of his character development. Each time he trips over it, he adds another fragile layer of self-awareness. However small, however clumsy, it becomes part of who he is becoming. And this is where the amazing world of Gumball reaches beyond Elmore and touches the audience directly. Gumball's invisible line is our invisible line. It challenges us to think about our own thresholds, the places where fun turns into harm, where affection mutates into control, where curiosity shades into exploitation. It reminds us that apologies matter, but prevention matters more. That laughter is sweetest when it includes others, not when it excludes them. That protecting someone means standing beside them as they are, not reshaping them into what makes us comfortable. In the end, the invisible line is less about morality and more about awareness. It's about recognizing that our actions ripple outward, often in ways we cannot predict. It's about realizing that while humor, curiosity, and love are powerful forces, without empathy, they can wound as deeply as cruelty. By the time the credits roll, we understand why this invisible line is the perfect closing reflection for Gumball's story. He isn't defined by his worst moments. He is defined by how he stumbles through them, by how he apologizes, by how he occasionally, awkwardly, imperfectly, learns. His invisible line is always there, waiting for him to notice. And with each misstep, he edges closer to seeing it before it's too late. And that is why these stories matter. They don't just entertain us with absurd comedy. They remind us of the delicate balance between self and other, between impulse and care, between chaos and responsibility. They remind us that laughter without empathy is hollow, and kindness without respect is fragile. And ultimately, they show us why Gumball, flaws and all, remains one of the most profoundly human characters in modern animation. Gumball's danger isn't in his jokes, it's in forgetting who the jokes land on. His worst moments are really his most expensive lessons. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment. Which Gumball episode made you feel he finally understood others?